Good day, everyone. So we've been through a lot of topic with regards to the life of Jose P. Rizal. So this time, let's proceed to topic 12, which is one of Rizal's literary works, which is the Indolence of the Filipino People. Okay, so The Indolence of the Filipino People was the longest essay of Jose P. Rizal, published in La Solidaridad on July 15, 1890, to defend the Filipinos against the accusation of Mr. Sanciano, who said that the Filipinos are indolent. So basically, this article was written as a response to the allegations or accusation of the Spanish against the Indios, labeling Filipinos as lazy or tamad. Okay, so sa madaling sabi, when we say indolence, ibig sabihin nun tamad, okay? So tamad nga ba ang mga Pilipino? That's the question that Jose Rizal answered in his article. Okay, so we all know that Jose P. Rizal is ethnocentric, meaning to say, he does not want other people looking down on his race, especially on being a Filipino. Kung mapapansin nyo, most of Rizal's works and a lot of his writings are actually meant to defend a sort of Filipino culture and Filipino mentality. He is trying to clarify things out, and he is always trying to uplift the image of the Filipino people. So basically, sa essay na The Indolence of the Filipino People, sinagot ni Rizal yung allegations, are Filipinos lazy? Okay, so Rizal's thesis in his essay was that the Filipinos were not lazy by nature or were not born lazy, but had a tendency to become lazy. So yun naman pala, maaring tamad nga ang mga Pilipino pero hindi sila pinanganak na tamad. There are some factors to consider why Filipinos act indolent. Okay, so here's the thing. I would like you to look at this image. The very famous Juan Tamad, who is noted for extreme laziness o sobrang katamaran. So instead of getting the guava by using a stick or panungkit, he just lie down there and wait for the guava to fall into his mouth. So according to him, let the nature's gravity do the work. Okay, so si Juan Tamad, or the story of Juan Tamad, became a classic representation kung gaano ka-chill ang mga Filipino noong unang panahon. Basically, amidst the burning heat of the sun around in the afternoon, just right after they finish half of their work, Filipino farmers usually take a rest along the shade of the trees. So syempre, sino ba namang gaganahan na magtrabaho sa gitna ng matirik na araw? 'Di ba? So sabi ng mga Espanyol, tamad na raw 'yun. So sabi ni Rizal, tamad ba agad 'yun? So that is when it became too personal for Rizal. Ah, tamad pala kami ha. I will tell you why and prove you wrong. So okay, so here are some of the factors that Rizal considered why Filipinos act indolent. Okay, so these are the main points of the article La Indolencia de los Filipinos, or in English, The Indolence of the Filipinos. Okay, number one, hindi tamad ang mga Pilipino, sabi ni Rizal. Bakit? Because of the Spanish galleon trade. I assume we are all familiar with this, right? So as you can remember, the Spanish have large ships, tinawag nila yung galleon. And then, they travel from Manila to Acapulco, Mexico. And then, they monopolize the trade. So lahat ng produkto from Manila na naglalaman ng mga products from the Philippines, China, and other neighboring countries punta diretso sa Mexico. And because of that, the galleon trade cuts off all the small businesses of the Filipinos, and also the Spanish recruit the Filipinos to build or repair the galleon. Hence, they have to leave their family. Because of that, who will have the motivation to work if they were away with their family? Aside from that, Filipinos were being forced to work for the galleon trade, to support for the galleon trade. Ang tanong, do they benefit from that? Wala. So because of that, hindi nagkaroon ng economic activities ang mga Filipinos. So sabi ni Rizal, we are not lazy. Kayo ang dahilan. Your galleon trade cuts off our small businesses and deprived our motivation to work. Okay. So second factor is the implementation of forced labor, o mas kilala natin sa tawag na polo y servicio. Okay. All men aged from 16 to 60 years old are mandated to work on making ships, which is the galleon. Some are forced to build roads, churches, and other establishments, forcing the Filipinos to leave their family and livelihood. This is how it works kasi. Okay. So if you're from Visayas, for example, okay, so if you're from Visayas, you will be transferred to Luzon to work depending on where the work site is being held. Okay, so the Spanish take advantage on the Filipino masses to fulfill their own interest. So sabi ni Rizal, we are not lazy. It's you who are forcing us to work on something we don't ask for. To work for something na labag sa aming kalooban. Who will have the motivation to work by force without even considering their consent? What benefit can they get? Di ba? Wala. This forced labor actually hindered the Filipinos to cultivate their assets, their agricultural industry, their creativity in handicrafts, and many more. In other words, Filipinos don't have the freedom to embrace themselves because of suppression. And that's why Rizal said, we are not lazy. We want to work. We are creative. Even before you conquered us, we are already civilized. We have the system of writing, we have our own system of government, we have our own system of politics, system of justice, and even trading system. We're not lazy, it's you, Spanish, who deprived us. You conquered us, you enslaved us, but you didn't embrace our economic activity. Hence, we didn't make a progress. And because of that, you killed our passion, you killed our motivation to work. Other reason is that the Spain did not protect the people against foreign invaders and Muslim pirates. Okay, Rizal said, we are not lazy. It's you who did not protect us from invasion and from Muslim pirates. Because every time we were attacked, you didn't care for us. You didn't fight for us. Hence, a lot of our properties were destroyed and our population were reduced. There are a lot of islands in Visayas that were prone to piratical attacks. That's why some of the places in Visayas were named after the Muslim pirates or also known as Moro. Aside from that, every time that there were foreign invaders in Manila, the Filipinos were used as military forces. So sabi ni Rizal, how come you say that the Filipinos were lazy, where in fact you're using us but cannot protect us? There is no mutual benefit. Yung mga Espanyol lang ang nakikinabang sa mga Filipino. And because of that, Filipinos have this kind of mentality which we became submissive to the mercy of God, or also known as the bahala na attitude. Kumbaga, parang bahala na, may awa naman ng Diyos. Revenge is not ours, it's God's.
John Philip Salvador here, and now we are down to number 4, a crooked system of education. We Filipinos are not lazy, Rizal said. It is the system of education. A system of education which is nothing more but a repetitive prayer rather than developing agriculture, industry, and commerce. Rizal said, how can we develop economically when in fact the system of education is actually very repressive and backward? It doesn't even improve agriculture, industry, and commerce. So, Spanish colonial government uses education not for progressive means but to actually subjugate the Filipino. And now for number 5. Spanish rulers were bad examples to despise manual labor. In this section, Rizal differentiates the Filipino from the Spanish administrator because Rizal noticed that these administrators wake up late and head home early, while Filipino farmers strive to wake up early in order to avoid the heat of the sun. And so Rizal imposed, we are not lazy, it is you that is lazy. As Rizal also noticed that lower women followed the higher women just to fund them, when in fact they can do it themselves. So Rizal said, it is not us who is lazy. As holding a higher rank, you become a bad model to despise manual labor. And for number 6, the encouragement and propagation of gambling. We Filipinos are not lazy, Rizal said, but instead you fueled our gambling addiction. So we Filipinos admit that even before the colonization of Spanish, we already have cockfighting. But the moment Spaniards colonize us, more gambling games are presented. So Rizal said, you corrupt the brain of the people. Instead of stopping us, you put fuel and made it worse. So during the time of the fiesta, instead of having it for the churches and saints, you open gambling sessions. So in that case, you are the and so in that case, you somehow fueled our addiction towards such gambling.
And another reason that Rizal considered was the system of religion. The teaching of the Spanish missionaries that heaven is for the poor. The friars taught the native Filipinos that it was easier for a poor man to enter heaven, and so they preferred not to work and remain poor so that they could easily enter heaven after they died. I don't know if it sounds funny, pero the Spanish manipulate the Filipino, making them believe that being poor is okay, that being poor is a way to heaven, making them believe that they will easily go to heaven the moment after they die. We are not lazy, according to Rizal. It's the religion that enslaved us. Sabi pa ni Rizal, it's you who conditioned us, forcing us to believe that it's okay to be poor. Kasi, meron nga tayong kasabihan, the blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So niliteral nila yung ibig sabihin ng kasabihan na ito. So sabi ni Rizal, how can you blame us and accuse of being lazy, where in the first place the system of your religion makes us not to strive harder? Because according to your teachings, it's okay to be poor. So can you imagine? That is the mindset of early Filipinos before. That's why they had lost interest to work and entrust everything to God. And this is also one of the factors why we have this bahala na attitude. Okay, so like leaving everything in the hands of God because it is only God who can save us. Okay, so therefore we are not lazy. It's the Spanish teachings that influenced the early Filipinos to not strive harder, to not work harder to upgrade our social status, and to stay poor from birth to death. And of course, for the last one is the hot climate of the Philippines. Filipinos cannot be compared to Europeans who live in cold countries. Filipinos must exert much effort at work because of this climate. An hour's work under the Philippine sun, he says, is equivalent to a day's work in temperate religions. I guess I've mentioned a little about this as discussed from the example of Juan Tamad earlier, right? That the Filipinos during afternoon or during the broad day sunlight, the Filipino farmers use the time to rest along the shade of the trees or even in their huts or kubo. It's because, of course, the Filipinos know about our environmental or geographical features, which is a hot climate. And aside from that, Rizal said that his fellow men are not lazy. In fact, early at dawn, usually at 3 a.m., they start their work to avoid the heat of the sun, or at least to finish half of their work without being exposed too much on the sun. And also, Rizal implied that a 1 hour work amidst the heat of the burning sun is equivalent to a 24-hour work in Europe. So see, that's a big difference. Isang oras na pagtatrabaho sa gitna ng mainit na araw sa Pilipinas ay katumbas na sa isang araw o 24 oras na pagtatrabaho sa Europa o sa lugar na may malamig na klima. So those were just some of the highlights of Rizal's longest article, which is the indolence of the Filipino people, or in Spanish, La Indolencia de los Filipinos. With those factors or reasons that Rizal had mentioned earlier, okay, do you still have the passion and motivation to work in that situation? For me, it's a very big no. Why work hard if it's not for the betterment of our fellow men and for our country? If you work, what for? Diba? I'm not encouraging everyone to not work and to be lazy. No, it's a different thing. What I'm actually referring are the situations of our early ancestors na hindi biro ang kanilang pinagdaanan, and to never blame them why they act indolent. It is only because they haven't given a chance to have a better change. They were being controlled and manipulated. That's why it is very important to know and acknowledge the sacrifices of our early ancestors, because without them, we will never have the independence that they also deserved. And again, to answer the question, are Filipino people lazy? The answer is no. We're not lazy. We are just unmotivated. So that is all about this topic, and I hope you have learned some valuable lessons from our deep and tragic past. Thank you and God bless.